Backyard suites and in-law suites are starting to become popular, but there's some key things you've got to think about before you embark on this. Now, one of the things that we've been saying for quite some time now here in Halifax is we've kind of got four things going on at the moment. Number one, we still aren't having a ton of inventory on the market. Yes, it has definitely got better, but there's still not a lot of inventory on the market, and that creates a shortage. Number two, we are not at those prices from, let's say, 2019, where the average price was like 350, 380, maybe 400,000. Our average price now, we're kind of getting into the mid sixes for an average. So that creates a bit of an issue for the people who are trying to get their foot on the housing market, trying to maybe, let's say, because this does affect me, get out of the family home and find their own property, because houses are like fairly expensive now compared to, again, let's go back 6 years. So one of the things that we're starting to see is that increase of interest on two things, backyard suites and in-law suites, is really starting to pick up. And the government did just obviously last year increase the allowance to help individuals who want to get into in-law suites and backyard suites to actually go ahead and get a $40,000 grant from the government to be able to do that. So what's happened? Well, I haven't seen a huge amount of these suites going on, but I did want to cover off just a few things that you've really got to think about, because recently just had the conversation with some friends of ours, and they were like, oh yeah, we're just going to put like a little like backyard suite in the back of the property because we live in Fall River and we've got like 1.5 acres. So we're just going to kind of get on with it and do it. And that's when I thought to myself, well, no, you can't. You can't just go ahead and do this, because there is a process in place. This is not just like sticking some kind of glorified shed in the backyard and off you go. People can live in it, you know, potentially sons, daughters, families, rent it out, all those things. That's not actually possible. So I wanted to go over the process today just to give you some ideas and some thoughts that if you are going down this process, things to think about. First of all, let's clarify the difference. There is backyard suites and there are in-law suites. What is the difference? Well, an in-law suite is part of your existing current property. It's just a renovation. Potentially it's an addition to the actual property. Potentially it's just redoing the basement of your existing property. So that's the definition. In-law suite is already attached to the property, or you're going to extend the property and attach it. Now let's move on to number two. Backyard suites. These were very popular, and it's a very popular term in BC and Ontario, because that's kind of where this idea of backyard suites really came for. Now, backyard suites are literally a completely separate dwelling, not attached to your existing house, are completely on their own. Does this cover like a glorified shed? Well, you could, but it'd have to be a pretty big shed. And there is certainly a couple of builders here in HRM that have started advertising their services to be able to go ahead and do this. And this is what prompted me is, number one, the conversation with my friend that's like, you can't just go ahead and do this. But number two, seeing that this construction company has just completed another one in an area called Lost Creek Village. So let's look at the areas now that you can actually do this, because that's where everything starts. Is first of all, check your local zoning and bylaws, because that's where you're going to find out, is it even possible for you to do this or not? Now, HRM did actually go and change a lot of the zoning and bylaws in particular to allow these things to happen, because they did increase from $25,000 to $40,000. So clearly the government actually wants you to do this kind of thing. It's a very quick fix to some of the housing shortage, some of the problems with availability. Now, admittedly, our market here in HRM Halifax area is changing. We do have a lot more inventory. Houses are staying around in the market a lot more, but what we're not seeing is those prices kind of like come down to where you could kind of say, is it affordable? So one of these options with especially the backyard suite, could be to go ahead and actually build one of these with an idea to maybe your son or maybe your daughter actually goes and lives in that. Potentially, it depends how nice you are as a parent. Maybe you could actually allow them to pay your rent or something like that at a fairly reduced rate. But at the same time allows them then to kind of have their own space outside of the house. They can come and go as they please. Some of these particular properties, you know, do have like 2 bedrooms, full bathroom, kitchen, living, dining, laundry. You know, they're not they're not big, and there is definitely restrictions to the size of the actual square footage that you can build these things. So this is not building another home on your property, just so you're all aware of that. This is definitely a suite. So it doesn't come with, you know, like 1,500 square feet kind of thing. These are much, much more reduced. So that's obviously one of the things that you've got to consider is how big of a structure could you actually build? And is it there for potential, this backyard suite, to be there for kids to actually kind of have their own space, but at the same time save up money so that they can then eventually go and buy their own thing? So first of all, check the bylaws and the zoning for your particular area. Then there is definitely a site called halifax.ca. Everybody should know this if you're in Halifax, and that's where you can go to look at everything. And there is certainly something that deals with in-law suites and backyard suites, the process, because it is building a structure, especially if you're separate, or well, even if you're attached to your existing structure, you are building. Therefore, you are going to need a permit. And there are definitely times when inspections will be due during that build process, of when the inspector from HRM is going to come out, inspect the items, and give you either an approval to carry on, or actually tell you that no, you've got things that you need to be correcting before he will come back, reassess, reapprove, and let you carry on. Typically, I think there's something like 6 stages during the build process where the inspector will want to come out. So definitely go to halifax.ca if you're thinking of doing this and look at the process. There are fees involved. There is an application involved. There are plans that you have to submit. So there's an awful lot of things you've got to do. Now let's get into some other conversations about this, because as well, like, let's not forget that people are doing this with an idea of actually either having like parents come and stay with them, or whether it's for the kids, or even if they're renting it out as well. You know, like, that is a possibility. But some of the concerns that you got to think about is, number one, have I got the space to do this? Like, can I actually fit this in literally my backyard? Is there access to my backyard? If there isn't, that's going to be a problem for you. You know, people do have the right to actually object to some of these things as well, your neighbors and community. So that could actually fall one little red flag for you, that you just don't have the space to go ahead and do this, whether you want to or not. You might not. Number two, let's talk about these areas where I live, like Fall River, the Hammonds Plains, the Middle Sackvilles, the Indigo Shores. If you're going to do this kind of thing and there is a bathroom involved, the question becomes, how am I getting, because we're on drilled wells and septic fields, how am I getting water to this property? How am I getting septic out of this property as well? So, you know, think of showers, think of toilets, think of sinks. All of these things have to obviously drain into a septic field. So number one challenge is, how do I get it to the septic field? Got to go to the tank first and then out to the field. But then number two challenge could be, is the field that I've got rated to have this extra amount of sewage going into it? Third thing to think about, how much more water demand is there going to be on my well? I doubt you want to think about drilling a brand new well for these kind of things. So it's going to come from the existing well on the property. How good is that well? Has it got the actual capability of producing enough water for not only the main house, but then the backyard suite, or even the in-law? You know, like if you're used to kind of using the water for a family needs of 3, and then all of a sudden 2 people extra join, that can put a lot more stress on your well. That could be a problem. Now, yes, these, if you are in city water, city sewage, that might not actually be a problem, but you still have to connect to those services, and that's excavation. That's not cheap. So like, think about that in terms of the actual value. So those are some of the things that you've got to really look at when you're looking at backyard suites, in-law suites, is there is a process. You can't just go ahead and do it. Like, I've had my friends say, yeah, I'm just going to do it. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, that's not possible. So prepare yourself, look at the information. We'll put links in the description down below and in the comments just about like where to go and find these kind of things. But in the meantime, if you're thinking of doing it, there is potential for a $40,000 grant that's going to help you get there. And you could be a nice parent and help your kids to actually start on the property ladder, get them something nice that's brand new, that's just been built, instead of having to rent something expensive somewhere else. They're actually on your property and they can save and get their own property. So that's it. If you have any questions, hit the comments down below and let me know, and we'll get you answered.